Listen, I am so thankful to God for the National Embryo Donation Center in Tennessee. You all who listen to this program on a regular basis know I love my conversations with these precious folks. They understand the profound philosophy of Dr. Seuss. A person's a person, no matter how small. And then along comes Benjamin and Tina Gibson, whose story gets blazoned over the headlines internationally, by the way, not just here in the United States. And who'd have thought all of that would go right back to the National Embryo Donation Center? Wouldn't it be cool if you could talk to Benjamin and Tina? Well, guess what? We are. I am so thankful. And my big question, Benjamin and Tina, is who's watching baby Emma right now? Is somebody holding her?
Actually, she's on my chest right now.
Oh, I bet she's just sleeping like an angel. Am I right, Ben?
Yeah, she's actually slept pretty good today for some reason.
I'm so glad. I am so glad. Well, you're holding the baby. Let me talk to Tina a little bit. So, Tina, no one who has gone through this experience, I'm wondering at the get-go, has any idea how long this is going to take and how arduous it can be. And you don't know whether or not you're going to have success and whether or not you'll have the implantation, and prayerfully, carefully going through all of those profiles and just hoping and trusting God every step of the way that it's going to be His good and perfect will, and that everything is going to come out the way He wants. Talk to me about the beginning of your journey. When you made this decision, how did you and Benjamin prepare for the idea that there are no guarantees here, but you stepped out in faith that you were willing to take one of these precious preborn babies and say, we're going to go the distance?
Oh, man, it was just such a long journey, I think, for us. I think that, my parents, my dad had told us about it, and, we were invested. We were actually fostering kids at the time, and so we were invested in that. Our hearts were there. My dad walked, we were actually headed to vacation, and my dad walked in the kitchen and told me about it. I'd never heard about it. And I was like, well, that's really neat, Dad. And he's like, yeah. He was like, Tina, you should do that. And I was like, no, we're not interested. And so, we weren't. Like, we had, we really just had no desire. We had never thought about that. And so, we left. I think that it was just such a God thing. I think we left there, and we had an 8-hour trip, and we were driving, and we could not get it off our minds, off our hearts. We watched every video. NEDC has lots of good videos, and we watched a ton of them. We watched everything. We read everything about it. And at the end of the vacation, we were gone for a week. At the end of it, we were like, no, it's still not for us. We're invested here. It's very neat. Maybe somewhere down the road we will, but, it's just not for us. And I think it's just so funny, that was really our plans. But, I think it's just proof that, that God has such, bigger plans for us. And, we try to, so many times that I try to figure it out myself and try to do everything myself and do it my way. But, God's way is always perfect. And so, we left that vacation and we said it wasn't for us. And that was in May. By August, I came home, and it was almost, out of, I don't know, I wouldn't say frustration, but it was, I don't know how to explain it. But I came home and I sat down and I was like, Benj, I was like, I think we need to do this embryo adoption. I was like, I've thought about it every single day. I was like, I cannot quit thinking about it. And so he was like, me too. And so just like on a whim, we filled out the application. And, that was in August. We filled out the application. It's kind of a longer wait. You have a lot of steps that you have to go through. And so by January, we had an appointment. By February, we had our embryos, our donors picked out, the embryos picked out, and by March, we did the transfer. And so it's like, it's kind of a long process. The long process for us was for me to finally give in and say, okay, I'll do it. And so it's kind of funny. I think for so long, I struggled with infertility for so long. And so like pregnancy was something that I didn't think would ever be an option. And so I was so scared to put that back on the table.
Wow. And all I can think of is Hannah's prayer, for this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition, which I have asked of him. Benjamin and Tina Gibson are with us. So's baby Emma, but she's sleeping on Ben's chest. So we'll talk softly so she doesn't wake up. Back after this.
For Good Morning America, Diane Macedo, ABC News, New York.
Wow. See, I told you the Gibson story went everywhere. ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, you name it. It just went international. And so now precious Emma is the daughter of Benjamin and Tina Gibson. That's because the Gibsons stepped down in faith, contacted the National Embryo Donation Center, and said, "Yes, Lord," and they were willing to adopt an embryo. Tina and Benjamin, I know you're holding Emma, so that's why I'm directing so many of these questions toward Tina. I know you're thankful for every moment she's sleeping right now, because you probably get 2 to 3 hours a night if you're lucky. So, Tina, when you found out, and a couple of the stories were that you were into the pregnancy before you found out that this little girl had been frozen for 24 years, did you have fears? Did you have concerns? Or did that not matter a whit that you were carrying a baby that had been frozen for that long?
I mean, I think that, the day of the transfer is when we found out. And so then I was terrified. I was like, oh, no, what if this lessens our chances, And Dr. King, assured me that he didn't think that it would lessen our chances, but I was so afraid. But then, once I found out that I was pregnant, I think the fear didn't come from it being frozen 24 years. It came from the fact that, infertility is just scary in general. And so it was like, oh my gosh, is this real? Is this real? And so we would hit each marker. And so from the moment that I found out that I was pregnant, we never even really talked about that she had been frozen for 24 years. It was just a miracle that I was pregnant to me.
So the press was enamored with the 24 years, and you're enamored with the fact that you've got a baby inside you. Well, so yes. Tina, it's interesting because the subtext, and the secular press obviously isn't talking a lot about this, but doesn't it really underscore the fact of the humanity of frozen embryos, that these are not life with potential life. This is life with potential. You are cradling Emma right now, not because there was a potential that she was alive. It's because you and Tina and me and everybody within the sound of our voice was at some point in God's plan for a life. We were all embryos. So the subtext of this is you never looked at it as anything other than this is a child. Am I right, Ben? I'll ask you. I know you might have to whisper.
That's exactly right. I mean, we have no control over what God wants us to do, for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So now that you've done it once, and I know that there's people listening who don't know about the National Embryo Donation Center, and it's not because we haven't been telling it, because we keep shouting it from the rooftops, and will going forward, by the way, but someone who goes, I don't know if I could do that. Tina and Ben, whichever is the easiest for the two of you to answer, talk to that person, that couple that has been struggling like you with infertility and thought, I don't know. I don't know if that's the route for me to go. What would you say to them?
Do it. Just do it. It's just like I can't explain it. Like, just from the fact that we were able to put pregnancy back on the table for us. I mean, we had taken it off. Like, I knew before we got married, I was like, pregnancy's not an option. And, we were okay with that. But then we put it back on the table, and just the whole experience, oh my gosh, just step out on faith and trust in God. And I mean, it's worth it. I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Wow.
It's worth every bit of it.
Really? Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Whatever the little bit we went through, I mean, even though the issues that Tina had to go through when she hit 20 weeks, having her laying here in front of me, it's worth every bit. It's worth everything we went through.
Oh my. And I bet you wake up with a little sleep that you get, and you pinch each other going, we are a mom and a dad, and Emma's right here and she's ours. Wow. Well, Thank you for leading the way. Thank you for being, whether you like it or not, you are now apologists giving a defense for life and for the National Embryo Donation Center in and of itself. And I thank you for that. And I know that you had no idea that your story would go international, but it did. And thank you also for acknowledging the creator of life himself in so many of the interviews that you did. May God bless you, and may you just enjoy every precious moment with Emma. Trust me, before long, she'll be asking for the keys to the car, and you'll wonder, remember when she was just this big? So blessings to you both. Thank you for being with us. If you have questions about embryo adoption, guess what I've done? I've linked on my website, the National Embryo Donation Center. So check it out, In the Market with JanetParshall.org. Maybe you didn't hear this conversation by accident today. Maybe the Lord's touching your heart in this area as well. Learn more by going to the National Embryo Donation Center. We'll be right back.